Hello and welcome to another episode of Getting to the Top, where I interview inspirational and transformational leaders who I think represent the best of us and what we should all aspire towards. And so today I have with me Stephanie Pemberton. I'm really excited to have Stephanie with me because she's one of the younger CEOs that I've known in my career, and I've loved working with Stephanie. Stephanie is dynamic and engaging and inspiring and brave, and certainly the description of no holds barred. So Stephanie does what it takes to get the job done, and she works with passion and she leads with grace. And so it's been my pleasure to have worked with Stephanie as the producer of Bad Granny and Planting Seeds, among other things. And so today, so tell us a little bit about what you're working on these days.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that amazing introduction, Raquel. I definitely feel the same way about you. From even you coming on to our show 4 years ago and sitting on our investor panel and giving entrepreneurs great feedback to now everything that you've done with the Caribbean Accelerator. It's just awesome to see you just transforming and climbing. And, as a woman, I could definitely appreciate that. You had a baby all through it. So, props to you for just, powering through everything and every challenge. In terms of what we're working on now, basically, I have, Planting Seeds, which is an entrepreneurship development sort of hub. And we also have Decoded, which is a home makeover, restoration, design, architectural type show. Bad Granny, which does customizations, auto customizations, and that kind of stuff. And then Bad Granny Media, that basically films the stories of all of those companies, as well as markets for corporations, and does media and video productions and stuff like that. So it's a lot going on every day, and it is a lot to manage sometimes, especially when you're working with all different types of people. I know that, basically that's what I'm working on. So just kind of trying to
just these couple little things.
Yeah, just these couple little things, trying to hold on to everything. Every single day I'm learning. In no way, shape, or form I'm perfect in any way. Sometimes I look back, I'm like, it's literally only by God's grace that I'm surviving each day and getting by and getting things done. But I definitely, somebody that doesn't give up. And I think that is basically what really compels and drives me. If there's a challenge, I might lose some sleep over it and be upset about it, but I'm just still in the game. I'm not leaving the game, right? And I think that's what entrepreneurship and leadership is about. It's not being the perfect you. I've made mistakes. I've learned lessons. I've learned hard lessons I wish I didn't have to learn. But at the end of the day, I think I'm better for it.
Fabulous. So tell us about how the journey to get to CEO of all of these various initiatives and working towards that, because I think, when we talk about diversity in leadership and transformational leadership, I think sometimes there's a young voice missing. And the fact that you are so incredibly young and you have done so much and still have so much more that you're accomplishing every day, it'd be great to sort of understand, how did you start and where did you go from there?
Well, I basically started in the corporate world. So after university, I went straight into the corporate world. I worked for a bank. I thought I wanted to be that person and move my way up that finance corporate ladder. And I had these dreams of, one day being a female CEO of a bank. So I don't think the trajectory of trying to be more and motivated was not there. But when it came to entrepreneurship, it just happened for me. I started a business, and then I realized that more of my time was spent in my business. And if it's one thing that I've stuck to always, is that if you're not 100% into something, then just don't do it. It makes no sense being half in and giving piece of yourself to 10 million things, and then you don't really do anything that you love and really like working with. And, my whole passion and what I love to do is to build things. I love to see things accomplished. I love to see things level up and move into different directions. And I like to be a part of that. And I think that transcended to what I do with all of the different brands. A lot of people say, well, you know, they're also different. Like one is on architecture, one is on cars and construction, and one is like on entrepreneurs and building businesses. And I'm like, yeah, but the common thread is that I'm looking through all of them. I'm going through all of these projects. I'm filming them. I'm kind of like, you know, looking at them and seeing how they evolve and grow and being behind the scenes in that way behind them. So I think that, you know, the evolution towards eventually being a CEO was just to basically drive a ship and steer it in a direction that I really wanted to go. And I think that no matter whether you are a CEO of a major conglomerate or a small group or a medium-sized enterprise or business, once you are steering a ship in a direction that you know is in your core, that you love, and that's where you want to be, I don't think that that ship is ever going to go somewhere that you don't want it to go. And I think that the crew that you have and the people that support you are going to be attracted to your shared beliefs if you're able to communicate effectively with them, which is something that I learned to do eventually. As a young person, I know you referenced that as well. I did have a lot of time accepting myself as a boss. I used to put myself down a lot, especially as a young female. Almost everybody I hired was older than me. Almost every client that I had, you know, predominantly looked at my business partner, and he's male, sometimes looked at him for meetings for all the answers. And it took a lot for them to actually start turning to me. And I'm like, hey, I said that like 5 minutes ago. So it took a lot for me to actually feel comfortable saying, you know what, I am the boss, you know. And it actually took one of the people that worked for me who started the little trend in the office, like, you know, she's the boss, she's the bomb, she's our boss kind of thing. And that's when I was like, I felt so uncomfortable. I'm like, oh, I'm the boss. And I'm like, you know what, I am the boss, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that I'm trying to, you know, level myself over anybody, or it doesn't mean that you're trying to lord yourself over anybody. It just means that you are actively taking responsibility for everybody. You're actually taking on the burden. You're going to suffer the loss. If something happens, people can leave a company, but the CEO and the person who's leading is going to be the one taking the burden of everybody's mistakes. And, you know, that's basically, it comes with a lot of responsibility. And after a while, I started feeling like, you know what, I am taking on these responsibilities. I am taking on these types of pressures, and I should be comfortable with being the boss, you know? So that to me was a bigger journey. Doing the work was always easy for me. I've always been a nerd. I've always been a pusher. I'm always behind my computer, but actually feeling good about it and accepting it and saying, you know, this is part of who I am now, and that's okay. And it's great. And there may not be many other people like me around all the time. And sometimes when I find some people, some women that are young, that are CEOs, or even women in general, because we're so underrepresented, I get excited, and there's a lot to share. And I realize that they have the same issues that I have, the same conversations we have together, the same journey. So definitely not alone in it. And that's basically, you know, what I have to say about that.
So when you were growing up, what did you think, or what did your parents think you were going to become?
I actually don't know what they thought I would become. I know that they just always wanted me to do my best, I think. I never really gave too much trouble in the school arena. As I said, I've always been a nerd. Like a lot of people think, oh, you're extroverted. All of my tests show that I'm actually quite introverted. Because of the shows and marketing and things, you have to talk to people and you have to network. If you're not doing it, you're not going to get very far in terms of what you're trying to achieve. But I am very happy hammering down by my computer, solving equations when I was younger. I use that as my mechanism to cope with anything I was dealing with in life. So I think that when I went to school and finance, they probably thought, they were like, okay, cool. Yeah, you're going to go and do your CFA and you're going to go into this bucket. And I think that that was really my dad's trend of thinking. And in terms of my mom, she was an entrepreneur herself, and she was like, okay, yes, do this, do that, you know? So she kind of like made me look outside of the contemporary box of the working world. And I think, you know, meshing those two together kind of made me feel a little bit more like organized, but still free, you know, to be innovative and to be curious about what else is there besides for the contemporary jobs.
You know, I just recently, because I think people read me as an extrovert as well. And I've just recently heard the term an extroverted introvert. And that's when you present as an extrovert, but you absolutely need that time to kind of revert into yourself. You have to kind of psych yourself up if you're going out and you're going to be talking to people, and you can do it and you can do it well, but your nature is to be introverted. And I think people don't understand that nuance about extroverted introverts, where you have the ability to switch on and be extroverted, but you need to decompress and you need that time to withdraw because your natural inclination is to be introverted. So I'm glad to know that you're one too. I would have never guessed that you were an extroverted introvert. I would have thought, no man, extrovert.
I would have never guessed you were one either. We are like hiding.
That's right. And sometimes that can, you know, as you were talking about not wanting to embrace being the boss, that imposter syndrome that so many women contend with. It's just feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to, I'm willing to do the work, but I'm not necessarily willing to take the credit. But then you're taking the responsibility for all of the successes and the failures. And so you have to take what comes with that, which is the title, and acknowledging that you are in fact the boss because you are responsible. At the end of the day, come hell or high water, it's on you.
Exactly. They're calling your name, you know? So,
precisely.
So yeah, I definitely agree. I think, and it's so weird that you would say imposter syndrome, because that's what it actually did feel like. I'm like, am I really a CEO? And then I'm like, I started this company, I invested in it, I worked for it, I hired people, I did what I had to do. And I was like, I'm like, I'm checking the boxes, I am. But, you know, there is something sometimes that, you know, women deal with insecurity and security, and it definitely is there. Most of my counterparts that are male throughout university, even in the working world, they had they would call them CEO with themselves CEO without even being CEO. They owned it. And sometimes, you know, owning it and, you know, stating your claim helps you get forward and push yourself to do more and get there. So I definitely hope that, you know, the next generation of women after me don't have that anymore. You know, I'm hoping that the next generation to come, that we're building a better place where women don't feel that way at all, and it becomes just normal and second nature, just like anybody else when they're moving up in the ranks.
So, but let's say, for example, let me be devil's advocate here for a minute, and the next generation of women coming up, they do feel the same imposter syndrome. What's your advice to them with regard to how they push through? Because whether you feel like you belong or you don't belong, you know, from my perspective, there's an obligation on us to create a more just, a more fair, a more prosperous, and more beautiful future. And in order to do that, we require a different type of leadership, that one that's more inclusive and representative of the people that we are leading and the people who are stakeholders in society. So what's your advice to people who are coming up now, who are unsure about their potential ability to lead?
It's a very tricky situation, I think, because it's trying to figure out what causes it. There's another company I have, MetaVision, that I recently started, and it gets into the metaverse world and the crypto world and NFT world. And my business partner on it is actually 24 years old, believe it or not, 24-year-old male. And when we were doing our analysis of everything and who is trading, because NFT trading is basically stock trading on like accelerated, you know what I mean? It's a whole different world. It's actually amazing that 16 and 18-year-olds are doing it. I'm really excited about it. But when we were looking at the type of people who trade, he was like, I was like, okay, so what NFTs do the girls buy? Or are they female ones? He's like, well, not really. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, the girls are on TikTok. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, most of them are on TikTok. When I go out in my circles in his age group, none of the girls, only very few of them are actually taking their money and doing the trading and taking that risk. Most of them are on TikTok doing videos or that kind of stuff. Whereas the guys are just watching on TikTok and then actually spending their money and learning a trade on that other end. And it really bothered me. I was like, well, why are they not doing that? And then he's like, well, they just want to be seen, you know? And I was like, they want to be seen. And he's like, yeah, and this space doesn't allow you to be seen. You know, it's basically your wallets and everything is a different identity. People don't know who you are. So there's not that kind of showpiece look of it on the behind the scenes. And I really wondered why. And I think at some level, maybe some primate level or socialization level, girls are, you know, it's out there that you need to be feminine or beautiful, and you need to show off your body, and you need to look a certain way or have people desire you in order to stake a claim and value on yourself and your life. And for me, I actually, when I was younger, I did some modeling, I did things like that. And when I was more stepping into the business world, I actually had to take a step back, and I saw the way that some people were treating me. And I was like, you know what? Every time I go out, even though I may want to look a certain way when I go out in private, when I'm going to functions or business functions, I'm going to dress like, but not a man, but dress like a woman, but in a way that it doesn't mean that I'm showing off my body or I'm being approachable. You know, sometimes you have to at least hold men back from themselves. And it's sad to say this, and it sounds like we're living in an archaic society to say this, but it's the truth. Because if it is that, you know, you see someone on social media and, you know, their thongs are out or something, I have no problem. Wear whatever you want, be free. But if it's in a private setting, and if you're trying to get into a business setting, you have to be careful about that. So I think a lot of the next generation should be careful like that. I'm not saying that, you know, it's right or wrong. You know, they always say, well, men can wear whatever they want. They can walk around naked, and then the next day they're in a business meeting and no one cares. And I'm like, yep, that's true. But, you know, men aren't as pretty as us. So, you know, sometimes we have to just kind of watch what we do in order to be able to get what we want, you know, and being taken seriously was something that I really wanted. And I really wanted people to see me for what I had to offer and bring to the table, my projects, all of those things. Yes, I want to, you know, eventually get married and have all of those great things, but it doesn't mean, I think that the next generation maybe want to take a look at what they're putting out there and what really is on the table for purchase at that exact moment in time, you know?
Oh my God. So much to unpack there.
Yeah.
And I feel like I have an opinion about every single one. So,
Yes.
you know, women being on TikTok versus selling NFTs. Now, it's so funny. I just participated in a digital transformation conference in Bermuda, and they sent me as a thank you an NFT as a gift. And I was like, how
It's
wonderful.
awesome.
How wonderful. And I have to register it and everything, which I will dutifully do. But I think it's interesting when women look at ourselves through a man's lens. Now he's saying, oh, the girls aren't interested in NFTs, they are on TikTok. But TikTok is providing a stream of income for women, for many women who are seeking a less traditional and more ownership-led involvement in the new economy. And so for me, I think good on them if they're on TikTok and they're selling content on TikTok. And I think it is a fine line, as you're saying, about, you know, what is it that you're selling, and making sure that whatever is that content, you own that content and you own the branding that you're creating, whether it is OnlyFans or anything back from that you own it and you understand what you're setting up.
Exactly.
But also I think that, you know, we don't make the rules of the game. And many times, you know, I had said to women in the past, you know, you have to understand that we don't make the rules. And so in my career, in a largely male-dominated career, there would have been lots of advances and offers, etc. And I had to discover a little bit later than I should have that the answer is never no, but the answer is not yes either. But it's making sure that, you know, you maintain people's egos, because it's great to say, you know, you're always this sort of, you can go through a man's world as a man. You can't. We're women and we'll always be women. But it is making sure that you're playing the games by the rules, understanding what you want out of the game, and being willing to be authentic to yourself while navigating this very treacherous landscape that has been created for someone that doesn't look like us. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, and with the business dress, you know, I could wear a paper bag, but I'm constructed in a particular way that whatever I wear, I look like me, and I have a particular shape.
Exactly.
And so I don't hide from that.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I also understand that, you know, I have to carry myself in a particular way to make sure that no one gets the wrong impression, but understanding that I have to be authentic to me. And so always applying
Exactly.
the rules
And
of the
yeah.
game. Yeah.
I agree with that. And women should dress. I'm not saying that shouldn't wear dresses or skirts or shouldn't look good. I was kind of going to the extreme of, you know, and I'm also not saying that you should have to cover up all of the time. By all means, it's a free and open world. Do what you want to do. But just know that if you're in the fashion, the beauty business, the lips, the eyes, all these things, 100% make your money, do that. You know, if you have a good booty and you work it out and people are paying you to do that, I don't have that booty, so I cannot get that on TikTok. I cannot commercialize myself on TikTok. But yeah, you know, in certain area, you just have to kind of know who your audience is. And as a woman, you just have to be very careful with who your audience is and how you deal with them, you know. And I love the way that you dress, you know, you carry yourself well, it looks good, but it's still not, it's appropriate for where you're going and what you're trying to achieving, and still having and maintaining
but
that
I'm okay with it. And I think that's the important thing, is that everybody needs to be okay with how they are. Yeah, exactly. How they're presenting themselves. But I want to talk now about transformational leadership, because I think some of the things that you have created are so incredibly innovative. For example, planting seeds. And now this is my perspective, right? Bad Granny, planting seeds, all of the things, even this entrepreneurship portal that you're working on now, all of these things are so innovative for our region. But I'd want, from your perspective, what in your perspective is the most transformational thing that you have created or done as a part of your leadership journey?
I guess the most transformational, that's really hard to really pinpoint something. Because I constantly feel like every day something is changing and we're working with change. You know, we've gone from contemporary TV to digitization to now entering the metaverse to, you know, every day it's changing. And I feel like the world is changing every day as well. So it's really hard to say exactly which one meant more than the other, because even with Bad Granny, you know, planting seeds is the clear transformation from the business perspective. But Bad Granny had also great transformations where we utilized Jason's artwork and to change an old Honda bike into, you know, a cafe racer, to restore old things. Seeing something on the road and saying, hey, let's make a movie out of that and let's fix it up and let's make it part of our Caribbean heritage and bring that alive. So I feel as though, you know, transformation is everywhere. And I think that the more that we just embrace it and try our best every day to just add to our existing ideas if we don't have any more, or make them better or improve them or work on our journeys, I think that you can find transformation in everything. But to narrow it down, yeah, I feel as though in every single brand that I've done, I feel like I've added my parts to the world to it. TV is not a new thing. TV shows are not a new thing. Makeovers are not a new thing. But the way I did it reflected me and it transformed it for my, for, you know, it helped me play my part in the world to transform it. You know, it was like, okay, well, you know, the Caribbean could have vintage restorations as well. Who knew? You know, who knew that there were some places in on our island itself that had so much history of all of these cars, you know? So I don't think that I can pinpoint exactly one, but I think that, you know, if every day you're trying to constantly improve yourself and you're constantly improving your trade and you found your niche, you found what you're good at, you're going to implement good transformative change because you're 100% in, you know? And I think that is what's really inspired transformation for me in all of my companies.
Nice.
You know?
So how would you describe yourself as a leader?
I can do it in terms of age, in terms of the different cycles of leadership, because I think that's very important. I was basically forced to be a leader at 24, you know, when all of a sudden we went from, okay, we're doing a business. And then I was like, wait, I thought I was working with all of these people. And I didn't then realize that they're working for me, and I had to get things done. And I didn't know how to be. So I think from my ages of like 24 to 30, I went through a friendship type of leadership where everything is okay. And guys, you do what you want, no problem. Like, let's go through this. Everything was cool. Everything was fun. You hired people that you just liked. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then that slowly kind of deteriorated for the business. It was great for innovation. It was great for culture, but then it became inefficient from a perspective of, are there timelines, are there deadlines, are there deliverables, are there you know, KYCs in place, you know, like different things that you need to kind of put together. So I would say between 24 to 30, I was completely laissez-faire in terms of leadership. By I think it took me like 30 to 31, 32, where I just started getting very hard, because then I thought it was almost like I had all these kids that I let grow up wild, and then I was trying to discipline them and tell them what to do. And when you're trying to make that transition, when you haven't done it before, it could be a bit difficult to kind of lay that.
It would be jarring on these children. They're like, wait a minute. I thought we were cool. I thought we were friends.
Yeah, and then you turn into mean mommy. And then it was actually during that time where I saw a lot more productivity. But that productivity could not last because the culture and the innovation started going down. So we got highly innovative. We did all these great things. Then we went to, okay, well, these are all the things that we do, and this is how we do it, and these are the processes and controls, and this is where you have to sign in and sign out. And then innovation and creativity started going down again. And then we had to kind of like re-emerge to then say, okay, well, you could do this and then you can't do this. So now I'm in this phase now where I think I've sort of found a balance in terms of managing and leading people. It's still very difficult. I still struggle a lot with communication, and it's something that is important to have as a leader. So I read a lot of books on it. I have a lot of people who advise me. I listen a lot to people, you know, leaders that are in the industry. I ask them questions. I tell them about the problems I have. You know, they tell me a lot of the things that I don't do well. And I've learned to have to take that critique, especially when it came to planting seeds and moving from dealing with only a few corporate clients to hundreds of different entrepreneurs from all parts of Trinidad and Tobago and then the Caribbean, all different personalities, all different types of motivations, and these are people who are highly passionate about their businesses as well. So it was a lot in terms of that transition as well, but I think I've made it through, and I definitely think now I'm kind of more of a democratic leader, but you know, I could lay down the hammer if I need to lay it down. And I'm now starting to evolve to a place where I believe more in my decisions and I stand by them as more. You know, before it was like, hey guys, what do you think of this? And if everybody doesn't like it, then you're like, okay. Now I'm kind of like, okay, what do you think of this? What's the opinion? I want to hear it. I weigh and I measure and I say, okay, this person is thinking this because of this, they're thinking this because of this. I'm going to go with what I think is the best decision here. And that's based on more of an analysis of the situation, rather than just being, guided by other people, or just being fickle within myself, So now I'm kind of now finding, now I'm kind of believing in me. And then I realize, like, when you do that, it's okay, because if it works out good, great. If it doesn't, you learn and then you adjust. It's never going to happen again. So I've kind of learned to be okay with winning, and well, everybody's okay with winning, but okay with losing, but more importantly, standing behind my decisions and taking responsibility no matter the outcome.
And knowing that, however you come to the decision, at the end of the day, the buck stops with you. You made the decision, whether you were guided by somebody else, whether you were influenced by somebody else, whether you didn't really think that was the right way to go, but you thought it was the right thing to do because everybody else seemed to think it was a good idea. You have to own it. So you might as well,
exactly.
You might as well take the decision where once you've taken it, you can't blame anybody else.
Exactly. And that's why, in history and time, they always say the captain goes down with their ship, and that's a rule of thumb, and it's very real. And I think that's what you have to kind of be ready for and embrace, and know that no matter who's telling you what, you're the one that's going to be going down on the ship, and you're going to be sending out those life rafts to try and salvage and help the other people, that didn't. And they have been great people that have turned out to do, great businesses that have fallen from grace in their position. Steve Jobs, who basically got kicked out of being CEO of his first company. So, but he's learned from it, and he didn't let it stop him from becoming better. And I think that's the making of a great CEO at the end of the day. Somebody who is not afraid to take, to believe in themselves, to believe in other people, to find a balance, to be innovative, and to be able to take responsibilities when things don't go the way they should,
I love it. And I heard this amazing saying the other day, and I find I apply it a lot to tennis, especially, is I either win or I learn. I never lose. So yeah. I think that sounds a lot like what you're describing, is that, listen, you're gonna have to roll with the punches, but you will learn, and through that learning and being willing to learn and being willing to sort of have a tumble and recover. And it's in the recovery that you continue to move forward. But I love your passion. And I'm going to make sure that especially on YouTube, we have a full description, because I realize some of the people listening may not necessarily be familiar with what is Bad Granny and what is Planting Seeds and all of these other platforms that you've created. But I think I love the level of innovation that you've brought to our market, and how passionate you are, and how, they say that being fearless is proceeding despite the fear, but on the face of it, you appear completely unperturbed by fear and unrestrained by fear. And I think we need more people of color, more women like you, willing to take up that mantle and willing to fail and recover, because it is in that persistence that we find greatness and excellence and innovation and new solutions that we haven't seen before. So
100%, 100%. Love it
so much. It's always so good to see you.
Always great to see you too.
And I know you will continue to do great things. I'll probably have to get you to come back to talk about the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So thank you so much. Always good to watch you and be inspired by your work. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raquel. I appreciate it. All right. Have a good evening.
Bye. Please subscribe.
Bye.